Welcome to the Mindfuckery podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth, a trauma healer, author, founder of the Inner Healing Sanctuary. This show has been recognised by FeedSpot as one of the top emotional abuse podcasts worldwide and number 3 in the UK domestic violence category. It's also featured in million podcasts among the best on narcissistic abuse, coercive control and complex trauma. Here we go deeper, clearing emotional and ancestral wounds, breaking cycles of shame, abandonment and betrayal, and reclaiming every part of you, because it stops here, it stops now, and it stops with us. And as ever, you are so very, very welcome. Last week I was talking about the 5 pillars, or one of the 5 pillars, and I was talking about spirituality. And spirituality, initially you think of maybe religion and God, but it's actually, my understanding of it was everything from your moral compass to your belief system that you've been given. It wasn't the religious side of it as such. It was questioning everything about yourself. When I first discovered this, I don't even know whether I discovered them as pillars, but I started calling them pillars. And it was the different areas of your life that had been attacked. And they ran emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I added in financially because that had a massive impact on me personally. I've been talking about them again recently, and the first one that kept coming out of my mouth was spiritually. And I think it's that because you've been questioned, they all weave into each other. They all have an impact on each other. And because they're pillars, I saw them as the strength. It makes sense to have these structures to make sure that the foundations are really strong. And that was one thing that I was aware of. I was using some oracle type cards and right at the beginning of the relationship, and it showed me that the foundations were weak. So I'm going to look at the emotional pillar and how important, as I said, these pillars are part of us and who we are. And it's as if the abuser got some form of jackhammer or sledgehammer or something like that, and they're attacking each one of these pillars, but they're doing it in such a way that maybe they've put like a muffler type, the noise reduction earphone type thing that's going to stop the noise. They're going to stop us realizing this is what's happening and this is what they're doing. And you've also got the other element that sits below this. It's highly likely that you've heard this before, and that's why you accept it, or you don't see it as abuse, because to you that is normal. So emotional abuse is a pattern of behaviour where just one person, or it could be a group of people, I suppose, if you think a large body like a government or something like that. But in this scenario, we're looking at one person, and what they're doing is they're using techniques such as creating fear and humiliation, guilt, and they're using manipulation tactics in order to gain power. The fear that lies beneath it for them is that they are unworthy, they have low self-esteem, they have trauma. And so what they're doing is they're aligning their life, and they might not feel that they are worthy of being in a relationship with you, or they see something within you that they want. So the abuser creates a life, they create a persona. This is a key actually. They create a persona by listening to you and creating a person that you want in your life. And they put on this mask and pretend to be that person. Now that role becomes heavy. For some people, they can live that role for years, for decades, and other people it's a short period of time. But they've created this scenario, they've created this person, they've created this character for you. And this is so you don't leave them. And this is why, as I said, these pillars do actually intertwine. Unlike physical abuse, emotional abuse goes unnoticed. But personally, I felt, because I have been in a physically abusive relationship, I felt that this damage was worse than the physical abuse that I experienced. Now, my physical abuse was probably nothing compared to some people, so we can't compare eggs and carrots. That was just my experience. What was taking place put me into a state of confusion, and this is something that you might recognise, because I actually had no idea it was happening. And honestly, it's a bit like Chinese water torture. It happens very, very slowly, and then it turns you crazy. So they chip away at your self-esteem. The abuser challenge everybody within your life, but on a subtle basis. And then you begin to doubt your perceptions and your reality. And it's this cycle of emotional abuse. They use so many different tactics. That's why I wrote the A to Z of emotional abuse. And the aim is to get power over you, and it's to control you. That's your life, the people around you, how you see yourself, how people see you, your finances, what you physically look like. And it's a trap. The most mind-blowing, mind-fuckery thing about it is they manipulate you into believing that they're protecting you, when in fact they're abusing you. And I wrote the A to Z. It was published in 2020. I wrote it because what I was doing as part of my trying to understand, all I wanted was the truth. I just wanted to understand what had happened. As all I needed. Was prepared to walk away financially. That was literally all I wanted. I just wanted the truth. I just wanted to understand the manipulation. I didn't know it was manipulation. I just wanted to understand what had happened. So we gone from this couple that was supposed to be soulmates. It seemed perfect to start with. And then we went away, and about 5 months into the relationship, I started to feel unease. It was something in my gut that was telling me something. And I was right. And I found him talking to people, but that still wasn't the biggest part of the picture. I think earlier on, he told me he was single, and then it transpired he wasn't single. He was actually seeing someone. They had holidays booked and things like that. So he was having to unpick himself from that relationship, which I got. We hadn't been dating very long. However, when you start to go into months, and we're talking like 8 months, and other people start appearing, that's why I tried to get out of it. And I was then convinced that we were supposed to be together. We were soulmates. Oh, he wanted to heal. He didn't want to live the life that he'd had before, and he wanted to change for me. So some part of my ego got it. Some part of my own wounding recognised his wounding on this energetic level. And things moved along and our lives started to intertwine. But it felt like the moment that we got married was the moment that he withdrew. And then towards the end, I just felt him withdraw completely. It was a gradual process, like the entrapment is a gradual process. These are intense relationships. You know, you have everything that matches. Oh my gosh, we're so alike type. Oh, we like the same movies, or we like the same music, or we like going to the same places, or we like doing the same things. And this is what I mean when I say they create a persona. I can't remember now whether I spoke about this last week. It might have gone on the editing floor. I had been training as a spiritual life coach prior to meeting my ex, and part of this module, the tutor was talking about how she manifested her relationship, and I thought, that sounds great. I'd like to do something like that. So I did a lot of healing, and that was months and months and months before. It might have even been a year. But part of that was I sat down and wrote a list of what I was looking for in a partner, and even down to what I would like them to look like. During like text message conversations, maybe conversations, I'd said that I'd, interested in spirituality, and I did a lot of healing work, and I was a spiritual life coach, Reiki and massage and reflexology and all of that, and past life work. I mentioned that I'd been doing this work, calling someone in. He kept pestering me to share with him the list that I'd made. Now, being completely naive, and this is how naive I was looking back, and I didn't want to share it. This is the thing. I really, really didn't want to share it. No, it's mine. It was what I wanted to keep, and it was personal to me. But he just went on and persuaded me. Eventually, I did. So there's one of my boundaries broken down instantly, knowing that if he pushes and works me down, that I would give in. So I did. I shared it with him. And what I'm saying is they then are able to, with information that was given to him like a shopping list. They take this on mentally, and rather than say, I'm not that person and I don't think this is going to work, they set about creating that character for you. And this is actually one of the reasons why when they leave and they move on, they look so different and behave so differently. It's because they are a different person. They've had to create a new character for the next person. They've not connected on any level where you did. They've not bonded on any level where you were bonded to them deliberately. And this is through trauma. And this is the cycle of abuse. You experience the kindness, and then you might experience the little put downs, and you might make a comment, and you'll go straight back to kindness again. This cycle of abuse goes round and round and round, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's this trauma bonding that keeps you trapped, because they're unhealthy emotionally, and it runs in this cycle. Idealisation, known as love bombing. And this is where you might experience lots of different gifts, days out, might be weekends away, meals out. The abuser declare to be your soulmate, and they're also future faking. So part of this character building exercise, they will be looking for what your future holds, what you're looking for in the future, and then they're taking it and they're blending it with what their future plans are. Now, what you might see if you look in a bit further is that there's a sprinkling of what you want, and it's mainly what they want. You might experience constant text messages, it might be long phone calls, but there's a lot of attention. But during this time, they're also letting you know what their expectations are of you. And they might be sprinkling this with things that they've experienced in past relationships. And at some point in your head, you're thinking, I must remember not to do that. I must remember, because you think, oh my God, this person, this love bombing, this idealisation stage is amazing. They're my soulmate. They treat me so well. We go out. I've never been seen. I've never been heard in the way that I'm experiencing at the moment. These text messages in the morning, it might not be a conscious thought, but it's there. You turn over and wake up and there's a message from them. And they embed themselves in your life. And then it moves on. There's those slight put downs. They're comparing you to others. And it might be that you notice some of the things they say don't match up with some of the things they do. Words are cheap. You might notice that they are eroding part of your personality, or that you're holding back part of your personality. They are also in these subtle situations, because they'll be really subtle at first, actually breaking down your confidence. And they're also, like I said, with this letter that I'd written that I really didn't want to share. And I know that because I shared it and I was like, I really regretted doing it, but I didn't know why. They're smashing your boundaries. They're not actually smashing them, because this is all very gentle to start with. They're pushing them slightly. So where the boundary was, it's now maybe a foot further away. And at this point, early on in the relationship, it might be that you notice these things and you say something. So they'll take you straight back up to idealisation. And then you'll experience devaluation. And over a period of time, what you see, some form of discard. And this is where they might withdraw slightly. Something feels off, something doesn't feel right. They might disappear, they might go silent on you, they might get very secretive, and this is the mindfuckery. And what they're actually doing is bonding you, because you're now going to move even more boundaries. That fear of losing this person who sees you and hears you and treats you in a way that you've never experienced before, all of a sudden is disappearing out of your life. So where you might have set a boundary and said, no, I'm not doing that, you might be prepared to move that boundary at that point. And this doesn't stop. It continues. And they come back. They settle you back into this love bombing stage, this idealisation. And sigh of relief, we're back. Everything feels normal. Only this continues. And where the idealisation initially is a longer period, it becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. And I spoke last week about return on investment, ROI. So return on investment is a calculation that's made, and it will be made by them. I don't think I went into it in too much detail. I have got videos on YouTube on it. So it's a calculation. How long how much time, how much money am I going to have to spend to get what I want out of this relationship? What do they want out of that relationship? It might be healing. It might be they need a roof over their head. It might be that you have business contacts or you have financial contacts. It might be that you have money and they're looking to sustain their life. That is the return. So how much time and money are they going to have to invest to get sat on your sofa or their feet underneath your table and in your bed and living with you in that period of time to get the return that they want? That is their return on investment. That's what they will be calculating. So this idealization at the beginning is part of this cycle, and the devaluation and the discard might be tiny, but over time devaluation expands as they're doing their put downs or comparing you to others, and they're destroying your personality, moving your boundaries, they're destroying the confidence that you have, and they're challenging everything about you and other people that are in your life as well, the ones that want to protect you, that are there trying to say, look, what's going on? They're not really who they say they are. They will position them and smear their character. You start to believe that they're the ones that are protecting you when they're actually not. They're the ones destroying you. And the discard then, it might get longer and longer and longer. So they disappear for hours and then it turns into days and then it might turn into weeks. And they're back with the idealization. Because of the bonding that happens through this trauma, they have conditioned you not to expect too much each time they come back. It's a sigh of relief. Your body is now recognizing that they are, or believing that they are your safety. That's your safety net, because they've reprogrammed all of your system, your belief system. I remember when I was writing the A to Z of emotional abuse, I've written it as a dictionary. A is for emotional abuse, B is for belittling, C is for cognitive dissonance. At the back with every book that I've written, I've also put in a section or multiple sections and chapters on different things that you can use, different techniques that you can help in your healing process, help in your recovery process. And one of the things that I put in there was, what if you were looking in a mirror? What if this person who's intentionally, and it took me a long time to say that, because coming out of that relationship, I was protecting it, but I was also protecting them. I was protecting the shame and the betrayal and the abandonment that I'd experienced. I was protecting the decision that I'd made that I now knew were wrong. I was protecting the brand, I suppose. It took me a long time to wake up to the fact that this was all intentional. The only thing that I could do at the beginning that would say that I was thinking along those lines was say, who does that to another person? But now I can turn around and say, this was intentional. This was intentional. The abuser seek you out to destroy you because you have something that they like the look at. So to me, it was a mirror exercise, and it was like holding a mirror up and saying, what is it in me that they saw that they really want? What is it in me that they saw that I don't see about myself? I think I'd used it in various YouTube videos as well, but it's like, it might have felt like looking in a mirror. So really you fell in love with part of yourself, and that you might not feel like that in this moment because of the pain, because of the way that your brain is working, and because how it's been rewired. You're taking on much of the blame for this relationship. But this question was, what if I was looking in the mirror? Think about it. What was it they saw in you that they needed? Because they are empty vessels. They do not have a personality. That was never formed. They were never given that opportunity to create or find out who they were for whatever it was that was going on in their childhood. But it still doesn't make it okay to treat somebody like that, to destroy, to go out and destroy somebody like that. And for some people, you're at that point, we're going, yep, completely completely get it. I hear you. And other people are like, no, and you're going to protect. And I completely get that, because I did exactly the same. They'd never do that to me. The things that I said about, I used that statement, no, he'd never do that to me. And then found out that's exactly what he was doing. It was a shock. And I'm trying to think of examples because I can't. It's gone blank. So I'm hoping that's not a buried trauma somewhere that's going to come up and pop up. So the emotional pillar has been destroyed, and it might be that you're starting to rebuild it. It might be that you have rebuilt it. It might be that it's on the point of collapse. Everyone's at different stages and they're on their own journey. So it's okay. It might be that your pillars collapsed. You're staring at the rubble, and it's now about building it back up. I'm going to put some links in. I've got 2 roadmaps. One's for the first stage of healing and recovery, and the second one is for the people a bit further along. In roadmap 1, for instance, it's the grounding and the breathing and the body work, retraining the mind. I do think it's really important to create a safe space within your home, wherever you're living. And what you're doing is you're retraining your nervous system, you're retraining your brain, you're retraining everything to know that you're now in a safe place. Other things that I've done are I've used the shower. When I stood in the shower in the morning, I used that as a ritual of washing away and disconnecting energetically. And again, the most important thing at this stage is to be in the body, because the mind has been tricked to believe it isn't who you are, and to believe what they have told you is who you are. And it wasn't something that I was given. So everything was replayed, trying to understand, unpick, see where it went wrong. But you can't see where it went wrong because it was never right in the first place. You just believed it was. So we're now stood at this pile of rocks, if that's where you were, looking at it and saying, right, how am I going to rebuild these foundations? And at this point, it's like, well, who am I? Am I the person that I was told to be, or am I somebody completely different? Or can I step into that power and reclaim back that power? And it might be that you've never experienced it in your life, or it might be that you've experienced it intermittently. What's right for you is right for you. And this is why it's so important to remember this is your journey. And like I said, with my experience of physical abuse in another relationship, that was my experience. Other people have been beaten to an inch of their life, and I didn't experience that. So it was my experience, and how I felt emotional abuse was more devastating than physical abuse. I knew I'd been hit. I knew I'd been punched. The emotional abuse, I had no idea it was going on. And for me, that was the biggest part. I'm going to leave it here. I've still got the mental pillar, the physical pillar, and the financial pillar to do. If you'd like to find out different ways of working with me, I'll put my website link also in the notes. But I am running a free temple event on the 23rd of July. It's the path of sovereign integration, returning to who you're meant to be. It's a space for reflection and inner standing. And we're going to explore the patterns that shape who we have become, clearing back towards the blueprint and revealing the soul purpose. So we're going to have a guided meditation, channel codes, and a deep inner recognition. It's for those who are really trying to understand or understand the story, but you still don't feel like you've got to the core. I think one of the most important things to remember is we also need to get rid of the stuff that isn't ours. And through this trauma bonding, this manipulation cycle of abuse, what they're doing is they're convincing you what's wrong with them is actually wrong with you. Also in this temple event, I have actually built in a clearing, so we clear away what isn't ours. But this could also be family dynamics, it could be the generational line, that ancestral line. So as I said, click the link, and even if you can't make it live, you will get a copy of the recording. As always, I am sending you loads and loads of love. Until next time.